Thank you all for waiting. I did pass out the list of books that she's going to sort of be talking about a little bit today, as well as she has books available if you would like to purchase. Holly has done this before for us. The last time she did it by Zoom, so people could click on and order. On your list that you got, at the very top, at the top of that sheet is the code to get into order books for the House of Hope. She's got, if you look at the top, there's a address. If you use that address, it'll bring you into her place, and you can order them, and then either pick them up at the shop or have them shipped to you, I would assume. Is there a reason to order that way rather than through the other way? Yeah. No. She just wanted you to be aware that if you had it and you took it home and you didn't remember how to do it, I got a code to get there. So, are you ready? Yeah. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Holly and let her explore books for reading, as well as it looks like games maybe too.
All right. Well, thank you, Janice, for inviting me here. And if any of the rest of you want to move up so you can see better and hear better, that's great. So as Janice said, I'm from Red Balloon Bookshop. My name's Holly Weinkauf. I am the owner of the bookshop, and I'm guessing many of you know about Red Balloon, but just to give you a little background in case you don't, the bookstore has been on Grand Avenue since 1984, and I bought this store about 12 years ago. So we are in your community. We're lucky here in the Twin Cities to have many great independent bookstores. So I just encourage you to shop independent bookstores whenever you're buying your books, because we all do great things for the community. Let's see, it is wonderful to be in this lovely space talking about books. That is very exciting. So what you see on the screen right now is our website. And I just wanted to mention, I'm going to keep trying to talk into the microphone, but if you can't hear me, let me know. You know, we are a kids and teen-focused bookstore, but we carry books for all ages. And so I just wanted to show you on our website, if you go to shop and the menu drops down, you will see an item for book recommendations. And we can click on that, and then that takes us to a whole bunch of different types of recommendations. One thing I wanted to show you in particular is, let's see, that's not the one I meant to go to. This is a computer I'm getting used to here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. That's the one I wanted to go to. Open link. So we have all kinds of book recommendations on this page. And one of them is this book list, which is a list that comes from independent bookstores all across the country. And each month you can get new recommendations. This book list, and sorry, I'm having, let's see, and oh, there we go. Nope. There we go. Okay. So anyway, this list every month highlights new books for grown-ups. So this is a great place to go and look for new recommendations. It will also highlight books that are new in paperback. So I just wanted to highlight that was there, but our website has many other recommendations as well. What we're going to talk about today, let's see, there we go, are the books here. Let me just stick with these arrow keys. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so things that I brought today are, Janice mentioned that there might be interest in all ages of books, so we're going to start with books for grown-ups and just work our way down to books for the youngest readers. I mostly brought things that are either new or mostly new in paperback, or things that might have a reason to resonate at this moment in time. So let's get started. Okay, so let's see. I'm guessing that I brought some things too that are not on the list. I think I already said this, but this is I don't know how to pack just a few books to bring. I have to bring a lot. So I'm going to start with this one that's not on the list. I'm guessing many of you already know about this book. It's been out for a while. If you haven't read it, it lives up to its hype. Lessons in Chemistry. It's fiction about a woman in the 50s in the sciences and the challenges she faces. It's smart, it's hilarious, and such a great read. I was reminded to bring that one when I actually picked out this book, which is on the list. I'm going out of order here, but then we're going to jump back to the list and follow the list. But I just wanted to talk about these two first. This is a title that has been out, but it's new in paperback. The Woman with the Cure, and there's actually a blurb on here from Bonnie Garmus, who wrote Lessons in Chemistry. So this is also fiction. It's historical fiction about a woman none of us have heard about, but she's the woman who was behind what led to the development of the polio vaccine. So it takes place during a different pandemic in the 50s, and also addresses those issues of women in science at a time when that was highly unusual. It's also, it's a great book that goes through the science of how vaccines are developed. So interesting on many levels. Again, it is historical fiction. Okay, but let's go back to the top of the list that you have in your hands. So I started with some memoirs, some essays, and I don't know about you all, but one of the things that happened to me during the pandemic was I was having a very hard time focusing on a long novel. So things that had short bits were really helpful for me. So these first few books are written in that style. Bomb Shelter, the first one on there, again, new in paperback. That is the story, the woman who wrote this, Mary Laura Philpott, she's written a couple other memoirs. I love her writing a lot. She writes as a daughter, a mother, a friend. In this book, it's a lot about how, she just feels like she can, if she does all the right things, she can protect the people she loves. And then one day that all changes when her teenage son has a seizure. They realize he has epilepsy. So now they're on a whole different path than they ever planned on. But so this book is, it's full of those unexpected things and how she works through them with so much humor and hope, and inspiring for all points of life. Let's see, next on here, also new in paperback, The Anthropocene Reviewed. That is a collection of essays, and some of you may be familiar with John Green. He's actually best known for his novels for young adult audiences. He wrote the book The Fault in Our Stars. This is a collection of essays that he wrote during the pandemic. The Anthropocene period is the geological period we're in now, the human-centered era. And so he talks a lot about the problems we've created, along with how we need to come up with the solutions. But they're written in short essays. In everything he writes, he can so quickly make you laugh and then make you cry. And in this book, each topic, and they range, there's a wide range of topics. He delves into the history, how things have changed over the years. You'll learn so many interesting things. And then at the end, he gives it a star review. So Canada geese. He talks about the migration, what's changed about their migration patterns, and at the end gives them a review. Same with the tomato he grows in his backyard. So anyway, really interesting, fun, and again, short essays to read. Let's see, next on here is a book by Catherine May called Enchantment. And if any of you were on that Zoom call that I did a couple years ago, one of the books we talked about was her book Wintering that had just come out. Now she has her next book, Enchantment. This is new. And what she's writing about, and again, it's kind of memoir, it's essays, is this moment we're in right now where it is constant information, constant scrolling, the constant feeling of what terrible thing is going to happen next, and finds ways to encourage us to stop and wonder and be odd. And her belief that that is what is going to sustain us, that is what is going to get us all collectively through this period we're in. And for me, that just really resonated, that idea of we've lost some of our ability to just wonder and appreciate and find awe and magic in the everyday. So lots of wonderful essays in there. All right, and let's see, Janice, I should also ask you how long do we have here? Okay, all right. Okay, so that will help me pace things. Okay, so this next book on here, Saturday Night at the Lakeside Supper Club, is just such a fun read for those of us, well, for anyone, but especially for those of us who live in the Midwest as we get close to summer. You may be familiar with J. Ryan Straddle's other books. He wrote Kitchens of the Great Midwest, The Lager Queen of Minnesota. So this is his most recent one, and it's the story of a woman who inherits a supper club in Bear Jaw, Minnesota. And it becomes a story about the quirky characters in that town, about the relationship she has with her mom, the history that's happened that has led to her assuming ownership of this supper club. It's also about, she's married to a man whose family has a franchise restaurant business. And so they're looking to move into town. So it highlights that struggle between those local businesses and, the big franchises moving in. Anyway, he is a fun writer, and that one is a joy to read. Miss Benson's Beetle has been out in paperback for a little bit. Is anybody here familiar with this one? This is just a delightful read. This is the story of a woman who she gets to the point in her life where, her life is, she had some tragic things happen early on, and now she's just kind of going through the motions. And she has this realization that if not now, when is she going to chase her dream? And her dream is to find this very unusual, in parentheses, maybe does it even exist, unusual beetle. So she decides to go on this epic journey. She puts an ad in the paper to get a travel companion who can also help translate as she's traveling. And so these two women, who could not be more different, form this very unlikely friendship as they take this outrageous journey on this scientific mission. So there's kind of a theme here of women in science. But just a really fun read. Okay, and then we talked about The Woman with the Cure by Lynn Cullen. Black Cake. Again, this just recently came out in paperback last fall. And this is a debut novel by Charmaine Wilkerson. She is Jamaican American, and this book is the story of two siblings, Benny and Byron. Byron is a man, Benny is a woman. They were really close, but then they had some kind of falling out. And when it starts, we're not sure what that's all about. We just know that they haven't talked in years. But their mom dies and leaves behind this strange inheritance for her children. She has left behind a recorded tape and a Jamaican black cake in the freezer. And so the lawyer calls them to listen to what's on the tape. He starts playing it, and the mom says, there are things you need to hear right away, things you need to know. And it traces their family from 1960s Caribbean to Southern California. And so a multi-generational family story that deals with the joys, the challenges of family, plus racial tensions for her family, and also the joys that those shared family recipes can bring. The chapters are short, so it's a very fast read, a good one for the summer. Okay, now we're going to move in to the young adult books, and as I talk about the rest of these books, I'll kind of say what age they're geared towards, but the truth is every single book on this table is also a great book for grown-ups. So, The Firekeeper's Daughter and The Warrior Girl Unearthed. The Firekeeper's Daughter came out a couple years ago. Angeline Booley is that author. And The Warrior Girl, you don't have to read one before reading the other, but they are the same family. Both of them take place in Upper Michigan. It is the Michigan Ojibwe tribe is where this is centered. The first story is about Donis, who at the time is noticing some deaths on her reservation, and there's a mystery to why these are happening. So she gets roped into trying to solve that. It's a powerful, both of these stories are powerful coming-of-age stories where you also learn a lot about indigenous cultures, indigenous history, and challenges. The newest book, Warrior Girl Unearthed, focuses on, it's 10 years later, and the woman in the first book, who is the teenager and the focus of that book, has two young nieces. The second book follows one of those nieces now, or actually both of them, but mostly one, now that they're in high school. And she is doing a summer program where she becomes the assistant to a museum curator. And what she learns in the process is how many of their artifacts have been assumed and taken for profit by others. And so that becomes the underlying thing going on in the story. It's a thrilling heist. It's a page-turner. And again, you learn so much about the complicated injustices over generations relating to indigenous people. Both so well written. And again, you don't have to read them both together. Okay, the next book on here is by Claire Forrest, who is a local author. This is her debut, Where You See Yourself. The character in this book, Effie, is finishing high school, about to go to college. And so it's a lot of the usual high school stuff. She's trying, finding her identity. There's a bit of a romance, deciding what her next thing is going to be. And in addition to that, she also has cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair. And so as she's thinking about going to college, she's thinking about issues of accessibility. And in the course of this story, it's a lot of delightful high school things going on, but also we're watching Effie learn how to advocate for herself, learn how to think through what are the challenges she's going to face, and how to bring together people to help her find solutions in a world that is not set up for her. Okay, let's see, next. This is, and how many of you have teens that you buy books for? Or, okay, yeah, some of you, okay, good. Because, part of me is like, okay, should we keep talking about these books? Should we skip to another? Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute is a delightful summer read, again, for any ages, but high schoolers in particular. And this is a fun story with a romance, because a lot of the young adult books have romance. Two kids who have been academic rivals. And now they both have been accepted into this special program where they are thrown out into the wilderness and need to figure out how to survive. So they have to learn to rely on each other for both teamwork and leadership skills. And again, just a fun, delightful read for that age. Okay, now we're going to get into the graphic novel portion of the day. This first book, Sunshine, is by Jarrett Krashaska. This is autobiographical. He has another autobiographical graphic novel. His other books, he's most known for a series he wrote for young kids called Lunch Lady, if any of you have seen that with your kids. This one is about his experience when he was accepted into a program to go and be a camp counselor at a camp that in many ways is like any camp you think of. We have the great, all the Y camps here in northern Minnesota. The thing that's different about this camp, though, is it's a camp for kids who are going through cancer treatment. And so when he is doing this, he's raised by his grandparents. His grandparents are going, oh my gosh, why would you do that? That is going to be so hard, so depressing. And there are hard things about working at this camp, but it is so life-affirming for him. And just really gives you such a different perspective. A very moving book that includes all the regular things of camp too, like, young kids around the fire roasting marshmallows and trying to keep everybody safe. And the other thing you get from this is what a great experience for those kids to go someplace where they could just be kids for a few weeks. Okay, Akeem Aliu, Dreamer. This is a biographical graphic novel. Akeem has such an interesting story. He has Nigerian. This is his first book. His dad is Nigerian. His mom is from Ukraine. And they met while they both were in Ukraine when that was still part of Russia. They end up going back to Nigeria. Akeem is born in Nigeria. He goes through his family history, and you realize the racism his dad faced in Ukraine, and also the racism his mom faced in Nigeria. So his parents decided at some point for their, and also the boy, he has a brother, the boys, wherever they are, being seen as part other. So his parents decide for you two to have better options in life, we're gonna try to move to Canada. They eventually get to Canada. It's not easy, but they get there. So that's mostly where he grew up. He becomes fascinated and obsessed with hockey. And so he starts playing hockey, and but all along he's getting the message, oh no, black kids don't play hockey. What are you thinking? Well, why are you doing this? He gets recruited into the NFL. He played for the Blackhawks, and then confronted the racism in that organization. He went on to create a foundation to help support kids of color who want to get into hockey. So he has taken his story, his challenges, and turned it into a way for him to really make a difference. And so this is the story of his life, which is just fascinating. Okay, The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. This is just fun. It's a graphic novel. It's the story of a princess whose dad, the king, is about to die, and he keeps presenting her with these different suitors, because in their kingdom, she cannot inherit things. Only the man she marries can. She is not interested in guys. And her father understands this, but he is encouraging her to just, this is just how it is. And so finally he says, okay, then pretend you're a boy. So that's what she does. However, later, as she's pretending to be a boy, she meets a girl that she falls in love with. So there's lots of interesting things about how we put people in boxes in terms of gender. But it is also full of a lot of great cheese puns. So she is actually Lady Camembert. There's the Castle Fromage, there's Princess Brie, there's a lot of cheese puns, and it's, while it deals with some serious topics, it's addressing them in a very fun, light-hearted way. School Trip, another graphic novel that is from the writer Jerry Craft. His first graphic novel was called New Kid, and that won the Newbery. This is a follow-up to it, although you don't have to read both. And in New Kid, he is the only black kid in his very white privileged school. So he's very much the new kid, and so that's a book about how he navigates that. In this book, his school is now going on a trip to Paris. And so now everybody is the new kid in a new place with a new language, trying to figure that out together. So again, just a fun read that deals with those issues of who belongs, how do we welcome people, those sorts of things. Terry's Crew is another graphic novel. This one, can be for a little bit younger kids. Does anybody know Terry Crews? Do you know who he is? I didn't until he came and did a visit here. He's pretty famous. I think he's on America's Got Talent, maybe? Yes. Okay. Anyway, he has a very interesting past. He also played NFL football. This is, again, autobiographical about his life. He grew up in Michigan with not much, but had people who believed in him and his dreams. As a kid, he wanted to do it all. He wanted to play football. He wanted to play flute. He wanted to be an artist. And the messages he kept getting was, oh no, if you're playing football, you can't also be an artist. If you're an artist, artists don't play football. So this book just like shatters those stereotypes. It's about friendship and how your friends really support you in your dreams, and how sometimes it can just be that one adult who is encouraging that can make a difference in kids' lives. Okay, next on here, Simon Sort of Says. This could be one of my favorite books on all of this. When I first heard about it, I was like, I'm not sure. Because it's billed as like such a funny book. However, the backstory of this book is it's about a kid who 2 years ago survived a school shooting. And so I was real skeptical about this book. But boy, it is so good. It starts off so the boy who's Simon, his mom is a funeral home director. His dad is a liturgical director in a Catholic church. It starts off with the blessing of the animals, where everything you can imagine that could go wrong goes wrong in the funniest way. And so the family uses that episode or that incident to be their excuse for it's time for us to move. We need to go start over. But really, for the past 2 years, they've been living under the shadow of this is what happened to their town, this is what happened to their kids' school, and they just need a new start. They end up in this very quirky town. So it's a story about, again, being in new places, being the new kid, making friends, finding your community, how your community is maybe not always what you think it's going to be. And then in the kind of the backstory of it is how we all deal with trauma, what helps us get through that, what supports we need as we get through that. And it's just so I can't tell you how well done this is. And in the back, the author writes a bit about why she wrote a story like this. And Erin Bao talks about how her kids were coming home after being in lockdown drills, once a week. And so from her perspective, our kids are thinking about this. So let's give them a book where we can have conversations about this together, and in a way that's not crushing, not heavy-handed, but just with really good storytelling, and she does that here. Okay, Maisie Chen's Last Chance. This is by Lisa Yee, and Maisie Chen, I think, lives in California, if I'm right. However, her grandfather gets sick, and so her mom needs to come and take care of her grandfather. Her grandfather lives in Last Chance, Minnesota, so another Minnesota book. He has a Chinese restaurant. He's the only Asian person there. And so now Maisie Chen, coming to this small town in Minnesota, is there for a couple weeks, but it turns into much longer, and she is the only Asian kid in town. Again, another story about how do we welcome people, who belongs. It's also a story about her family, though, too, and she learns a lot about her family history. How did they end up in Last Chance, Minnesota? And also a story about food. What is the name of the restaurant? The Golden Palace. The Golden Palace is the restaurant, which is full of many secrets as well. And moving along, Nick Blake and the Remarkables. This is by an author that if any of you have young readers, they will know this author's name, Angie Thomas. She wrote a book for older kids a few years ago called The Hate You Give. This is her first book for younger kids, and it's just an adventure-packed fantasy that, if any of you are familiar with the Percy Jackson series, so similar to that, it's based in African American history and folklore, but there's adventure and fantasy and just a fun read for that age. All right, these next two books are by Brian Selznick. Big Tree is Brian Selznick's newest book. He is the author of Hugo Cabret. Some of you may remember that. He is an incredibly gifted storyteller, both in words and in art. So his books pull together both of those elements, and they are just amazing. This book is about two seedlings who are separated from their seed ball. And I mean, boy, to be able to create these siblings and to tell this story of two seeds, I mean, only Brian Selznick can do this. The world is facing imminent catastrophe, and with an asteroid. So it's a parallel to modern day climate challenges and what it takes for people, well, in our case people, in their case plants and animals to pull together to make a difference. It is a powerful and very timely story, beautiful. It's a great book for, it would be a great family read because it reads so well and visually it's just wonderful to look at. So for sure look at that when if you come up. And since I was mentioning that book, I had to bring a copy of Baby Monkey Private Eye because I love it so much. It's a book for younger readers, kids just starting to read, but again, has his illustrations. There's so much to look at. The story, Baby Monkey is trying to solve all these mysteries, although in between each one, he gets all tangled up because he just can't get on his pants. And so that's like the thing running throughout the book. It is smart and funny. Elf Dog and Owl Head is a book by M.T. Anderson, who's written a lot of books for all ages. This book is, kind of upper elementary school, but could be a read aloud for the whole family. It kind of has a little bit of the Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe feel, only in this case, instead of the kids going through a portal to get to this magical realm, there's a dog from another realm. Is it still on? Did it just go off? Anyway, I'll talk about it. But so it's the dog that comes into our world, and the dog arrives during the pandemic. There's a lot going on in this story, but it is just wonderful and touching and magical, and again makes you think about what is it in our day-to-day that we're just not taking the time to notice that we should. Okay, and then for younger readers, I just wanted to mention this series, The Dragon Girls, is a newish series. Now there are several of them, but if you have young readers in your family who are just starting with chapter books, this is a great series. This girl the main character moves into a new house and walks out to her backyard and realizes there's a magical forest behind there. She and her friends get involved in this forest and all kinds of adventure takes place. They realize they have secret powers where they can turn into dragons. So a fun book for those starting to read chapter books. All right, then I also brought, and we can just quickly go through some of these, some other fun things for the summer. There's a new series of camping books for any of the families that enjoy camping. This newest one is Where Should We Camp Next? National Parks. There's also one for the 50 states. So great suggestions for campgrounds all around. The Birding Children's book is, as any bird book, it has all those facts, only written and laid out in a way that's much more accessible to kids. A lot of what I've talked about is fiction, but lots of kids really appreciate nonfiction. So this is a fun series, this is the new one in it, about famous people that with each character, it goes through all the interesting things you may not know about this famous person told in a really funny way. Dan Gutman also writes fiction, and he's a funny man, and young kids especially appreciate his humor. I brought a couple books on pizza. I feel like summer is a good time for pizza. The first one is a picture book about the history of pizza. Again, all of us would find it interesting. And then a board book for the youngest of readers on pizza. A year of good news. I was thinking about, okay, for people who maybe have cabins, what are good books to have on your coffee table for kids to just be looking through? This is one of those books. So many different stories of really random acts of kindness that we just don't hear about. And interesting things going on that make you feel like, wow, there are good people in the world. And then Things to Do Outdoors is a good activity book for the summer. And now we're into the picture books. And I feel like a lot of these you'll be able to come up and just look at for yourselves. And so I'll just quickly give you just a quick sentence on each of these. Summer is for Cousins is a great book that just really captures that fun of multi-generational families getting together for the summer and all the things they do, all the time in the water, all the visits to the ice cream shop, all of that fun kind of stuff. Grandma's Teepee is also a summer story, but about a third grade girl who goes to visit her grandma on Standing Rock Reservation, and so what their summer is like. This one has a lot more text than most picture books, but again would be a great family read aloud. Where We Come From is written by 4 local authors. The fourth one isn't listed on here, that's Diane Wilson. But they each write their own story of where they come from and how they ended up in Minnesota. And it's so well done. It's also a great starting point for families to tell their own stories. And next here we have Your Branches by Joyce Sidman. She's local. And this would be another great book for the summer because she takes the idea of branches and takes it in so many different directions. So not just the branches of trees, but the branches in our bodies, and really it becomes a book about the branches of life. So take a look at that one. When You Can Swim is a book from a new picture book writer and illustrator that talks about, so this is somebody who learned to swim as an adult. And so he wanted to write a story about just the feeling of that and the world that opens up when you can swim. So it's kind of poetic and really a celebration of what a magical thing that is. This Planet Where I Live is by Deborah Fraser, who used to live here. She moved a few years ago. Some of you may remember the book On the Day You Were Born. This is the same author. And this is kind of a stacking story. Like if you think of the tale that most of us know, that this is the house that Jack built. And it's that kind of story, but this is the planet where I live, and it just keeps building and building and building. Okay, Cinderella with Dogs is just gold. Cinderella asks for her fairy godmother, but instead she gets her fairy dog mother, which turns out to be the best possible thing. Fortunately, when she ends up at the ball with her fairy dog mother and all kinds of dogs have followed them there as well, she realizes that the prince also loves dogs. And so all goes well, but very much a different spin on Cinderella. 100 Mighty Dragons, all named Broccoli, is a great counting math book, but with so much more going on. This is by local author David LaRochelle. And then, after this, there are some workbooks here for the youngest of readers, and I'll just highlight a couple of them. The Making of Butterflies story from one of Zora Neale Hurston's collections that even can be adapted for young kids. So it's the idea of the creator taking bits of everything that had been created to create butterflies so that the flowers wouldn't be lonely. And it's very beautiful and sweet. And that would be a great one to pair with becoming a butterfly and talk about that whole process. And then there's some good camping and lake books and a couple other board books for you to take a look at, plus many other things. So that was a lot. Again, this was Holly has a hard time limiting the number of books in book talk. But yeah, come look, ask me about other things, ask me more about any of these. And yeah, any questions? Let me just say too that on the papers you all have, at the very top is if you follow that link that's on the top, redballoonbookshop.com, House Hope May 2023, you'll get to this book list. But you can also just go into the store and say, how about this book? Or, yeah. So do you all have any questions for me? Or I feel like that was a whole lot rolled